News Radio 700 WLW.
The stores are closing because of the shoplifting situation.
And it especially seems to be more out west, right? California,
Right.
Oregon,
Well,
a lot of these, more liberal states.
It's widespread, but it started there and it's moving east.
It's especially in these very liberal states out there that don't want to prosecute people, don't want to put people in jail, consequence-free environment. And so if you're a criminal and you know nothing's going to happen to you, guess what you're going to do? Keep stealing. But at what point does it stop? At what point does it end? Or does it just end when all these stores go out of business and there's nowhere else to shop?
Well, let's talk to an expert in the matter. It's Dr. Alex Del Carmen. We have had him before, and it's great to have him back. He heads up the School of Criminology, Criminal Justice, and Strategic Studies at Tarleton State University in Fort Worth, Texas. Doctor, welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me.
So, Dr. Del Carmen, how do stores stop this kind of behavior if, you can't just shoot them? What are you going to do?
Well, first of all, I think it's an indication of the times in which we live, right? I mean, in the end, what we are seeing across the United States is prosecutors that don't want to do their job. And we're also seeing individual police officers that have left law enforcement. So there's a shortage of police officers across the U.S., which means less eyes and ears in the streets of America. And then, once these police officers risk their lives and make the apprehensions, prosecutors don't want to do what they need to do. So I think the fallout starts there. Now, looking at what stores can do, well, we talk about making the target harder, meaning, put things in the back of the store and be able to have some degree of deterrence at the entrance of the stores. But the reality is, where there is a will, there is a way.
Yeah.
Right. So, but at the end of the day, if the stores, I was telling Ed before the break, and I'm sure you saw it too, there was a Lululemon store somewhere, which, they sell like high-end, like workout clothes and things like that. And somebody came in, a couple people came in, took a bunch of items out. And the employees of the store, I guess, go after these shoplifters and say, hey, try to confront them, try to get the stuff back. And Lululemon fired the employees for doing that. I mean, I understand they want to keep them safe and all that, but fire them for trying to stand up to this thievery that's going on? It seems pretty crazy.
Yeah, and I think part of it is because, a lot of the stores have come to recognize that when employees engage a suspect, which is sometimes our instinct, right, to stop the bad guy from continuing to engage in a crime. Sometimes these folks are armed, sometimes they're felons, and they're going to turn around and shoot and kill an employee from the context of liability. That store's liability increased substantially. So I'm not saying that they did the right thing by firing them. All I'm simply saying is that that's their mindset.
That makes sense.
So, so how does this end, Alex? I mean, it has to end in all these stores going out of business, because if you're a criminal and you can learn, hey, go to that store down there, that Target or that Walmart or whatever, they ain't going to even stop you. It'll be no holds barred. They won't have any items left. The stores close up. There's no stores around in the area for people to go to. And, it seems to be the only way to learn the lesson here is the hard way, and that's by all the stores going out of business, losing tons of money, and they're in the area that these people live in. It can't sustain anybody living there.
Right, and then what's going to also happen is a lot of these stores are going to claim those losses with their insurance companies, which means the premiums are going to be that much more expensive, and which means that the prices of the goods that they sell are going to be that much more expensive. So ultimately, we, the law-abiding citizens of America, are going to be the ones paying the price. And ultimately, the bad guys, some of them get away with it, and the good guys, the rest of us, are having to pay, a high volume of all sorts of goods because of the few rotten apples in the basket.
So in your mind, Dr. Del Carmen, what can retailers do? I don't know that there's a whole lot. What are you going to pat everybody down that leaves the store? Are you going to, have armed guards there? What can you do?
Well, I think you can make the target harder to reach. The research in criminal justice, specifically related to crime prevention, has been ongoing for over 50, 60 years. And what we've learned is perhaps what's obvious to some people, but we actually have the data to back this up, and that is if you make it less attractive for bad guys to come in, you have one point of entry, one point of departure. You put cameras. You also put a security guard at the entrance. You put the expensive items towards the back of the store. You limit access to individuals. I mean, you've got to go through a protocol and a series of things. It's called crime prevention through environmental design. And when you go through that mode, you're going to be able to reduce your liability and also your proneness to having something stolen. But in the end, not all stores are going to do that. Not everybody's going to heed the warning. And this is going to continue, I'm afraid, before it stops.
I mean, what kind of technology can be used? Are there chips you can put in stuff? But even if you do that, like an air tag, I know a lot of people are using those air tags. Even if it gets tracked where it just seems like the police and the DA won't prosecute anyway. So what's the difference?
Right, and then the other part of it also is technology only goes so far, right? So okay, let's say hypothetically you put one of those chips that are trackable on an expensive item. Okay, so the bad guys are going to know that eventually. They're going to be able to deactivate that. And let's say that you are able to get down to somebody's location. What are you going to do then? Is law enforcement going to show up? There's some cities around the country right now that those critical calls that law enforcement gets often, the response rate is over 8 to 10 minutes. And so imagine right now how thin, the blue line is in the context of law enforcement presence. You think they're going to be showing up because somebody lost a jacket that is, over $200, particularly one of these wealthy, retail shops? And the answer to that is no. And so I would venture to say it's great on television, but in real life, not so.
Well, we also see, it started with stuff you could make meth out of, with antihistamines and stuff being locked up, being
cough
in those,
syrup, yeah.
Right, cough syrup and all that being locked in those plexiglass cabinets and whatnot. Now I just saw a recent, and you see the razor blades now locked up for a while.
That's the most stolen item in stores, by the way.
And I saw a thing in this article that we're citing here where Spam in a store was locked up. I mean,
now that's
literally you can't
level.
start locking everything up.
Right, and when I read that article that you're citing, I also chuckled because I thought, it's definitely the if you had a thermometer to measure the current economic and fear of crime temperature in the United States, that certainly has become a thermometer, right? When you're having to lock Spam and make it less accessible to bad guys, we're in deep trouble, and it says a lot more about our society where we are today than perhaps about the price of Spam. I will say to you that, and remember this too, right during the pandemic and soon thereafter, when the price of gas continued to climb, people were stealing gas at the gas stations. And so they were bringing in these sophisticated, what appeared to be on the surface, a van, and they would park it right over the actual, container that has the gas inside the gas station, and they would pump it out because it was that golden liquid, as we call it in the industry, that people were after. So look, this is going to continue on, and I'm afraid that stores are going to have to decide whether or not they're going to have to build the stores or restructure them in such a way that it's not going to be so inviting to the bad guys. But there's always a debate between those that want to make the store look pretty and then those of us that that look beyond the cosmetic aspect of the store, and we want to make it safe for everyone.
All right. With that, Doctor, we will let you go. Thanks so much, Dr. Alex Del Carmen. We really appreciate it. Great stuff.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Alex.